China in the early 20th century was a nation in turmoil. The once mighty Qing dynasty had collapsed in 1911, leaving a power vacuum that various factions struggled to fill. Warlords vying for control plunged the country into chaos and instability. The Chinese people yearned for a strong and unified nation, but the path towards achieving this remained elusive. Amidst this backdrop of political fragmentation and social upheaval, two distinct political forces emerged: the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, and the Nationalist Party, known as the Kuomintang, or KMT. The CCP, founded in 1921, drew inspiration from Marxist-Leninist ideology and sought to establish a socialist state. The KMT, founded in 1912, advocated for a republican government and aimed to unify China under its banner. The ideological differences between the CCP and the KMT ran deep. The CCP believed in class struggle and the redistribution of wealth, while the KMT favored a more capitalist approach, with a focus on national unity and modernization. These contrasting visions for China's future set the stage for a clash that would shape the destiny of the nation. The seeds of conflict were sown, and China braced itself for a tumultuous period of civil war. The Chinese Civil War was the culmination of years of tension and mistrust between the CCP and the KMT. In the early 1920s, the two parties briefly cooperated against warlordism. This alliance collapsed in 1927 when Chiang Kai-shek purged communists. The CCP retreated to the countryside, building support among the peasantry. Under Mao Zedong, the CCP embraced guerrilla warfare tactics. Meanwhile, the KMT sought to consolidate power and modernize urban China. The outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937 forced the CCP and the KMT into an uneasy alliance against a common enemy. Both sides agreed to put their differences aside, at least temporarily, to resist Japanese imperialism. During the war, the CCP's guerrilla tactics proved highly effective against the Japanese, earning them widespread popular support. The KMT, on the other hand, bore the brunt of the Japanese onslaught, suffering heavy losses in conventional battles. As the war progressed, tensions between the CCP and the KMT resurfaced. The CCP accused the KMT of hoarding resources and not doing enough to fight the Japanese. The KMT, in turn, accused the CCP of exploiting the war to expand its influence. Despite their shared struggle against Japan, the underlying mistrust between the CCP and the KMT never truly dissipated. The wartime alliance was a marriage of convenience, destined to unravel once the common enemy was defeated. With the defeat of Japan in 1945, the fragile truce between the CCP and the KMT crumbled. Both sides, exhausted but determined, prepared for the final showdown that would decide the fate of China. The CCP, having expanded its influence considerably during the war, controlled vast rural areas and commanded a formidable army. The KMT, weakened by years of fighting the Japanese, still held major cities and benefited from American support. The early stages of the renewed Civil War saw the CCP make significant gains. Their armies, bolstered by peasant support and battle-hardened veterans, inflicted a series of defeats on the KMT forces. The KMT, plagued by corruption, low morale, and a lack of popular support, struggled to contain the communist advance. By 1948, the tide of the war had clearly turned in favor of the CCP. The KMT, despite receiving massive amounts of American aid, was losing ground rapidly. The CCP's military successes were due in part to their effective strategies, but also to the growing disillusionment with the KMT government among the Chinese populace. Section 5. The Huaihai Campaign, the Turning Point. The Huaihai Campaign, fought between November 1948 and January 1949, proved to be the decisive turning point in the Chinese Civil War. This massive engagement, involving over 1 million soldiers, took place in a region strategically located between the Yangtze River and the Yellow River. The CCP's People's Liberation Army, commanded by skilled generals such as Chen Yi and Su Yu, outmaneuvered and outfought the KMT forces. The CCP's victory at Huaihai shattered the KMT's hold on northern China and dealt a devastating blow to their morale. The Huaihai campaign exemplified the CCP's strategic acumen and its ability to mobilize vast numbers of troops. The KMT, on the other hand, suffered from poor leadership, dwindling supplies, and a lack of coordination. The defeat at Huaihai sent shockwaves through the KMT leadership. It became clear that the CCP was on the verge of victory. The KMT government, now facing imminent collapse, prepared to flee to the island of Taiwan. Section 6. The People's Republic of China, a new era begins. On October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong stood before a massive crowd in Tiananmen Square and proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China, or PRC. The Chinese Civil War, after more than 2 decades of bloodshed, had finally come to an end. The CCP's victory marked a watershed moment in Chinese history. The world's most populous nation was now a communist state, poised to play a major role on the global stage. For the Chinese people, exhausted by decades of war and instability, the establishment of the PRC offered a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. The CCP promised peace, unity, and an end to the exploitation that had plagued China for centuries. However, the CCP's victory also came at a cost. The Civil War had claimed millions of lives and left the country deeply divided. The new government faced the daunting task of rebuilding a shattered nation and healing the wounds of the past. Section 7. The Legacy of the War, a Divided China. The Chinese Civil War left a profound legacy. It determined the political fate of the nation. One immediate consequence was the division of China. The CCP controlled mainland China, while the KMT retreated to Taiwan. This division remains a lingering reminder of the Civil War. The war also impacted China's global relationships. The CCP's victory aligned China with the Soviet Union. China became a key player in the Cold War. The Civil War shaped the global geopolitical landscape. Section 8. Economic and Social Transformations. The Chinese Civil War ushered in an era of radical economic and social transformation in China. The CCP, committed to its Marxist-Leninist ideology, embarked on an ambitious program of socialist construction aimed at transforming China from a backward agrarian society into a modern industrial power. One of the CCP's first priorities was land reform. Vast estates owned by landlords were confiscated and redistributed among the peasantry. This move, while popular among the rural masses, also led to widespread violence and upheaval. The CCP also nationalized key industries and businesses, bringing them under state control. Private enterprise was largely abolished, with the government taking the reins of the economy. This centralized planning model, while successful in spurring initial industrial growth, also led to inefficiencies and stifled innovation. Social reforms were equally dramatic. The CCP sought to eliminate traditional social hierarchies and create a more egalitarian society. Confucianism, once the bedrock of Chinese society, was denounced as feudalistic and oppressive. Women were granted greater rights and opportunities, at least on paper. Section 9. The Cultural Revolution and its Aftermath. The Cultural Revolution, launched by Mao Zedong in 1966, represented a dark and turbulent chapter in the aftermath of the Chinese Civil War. Mao, seeking to solidify his hold on power and purge the CCP of perceived enemies, unleashed a wave of political violence and social chaos that would engulf China for a decade. Students organized into Red Guard units, attacked intellectuals, party officials, and anyone perceived as a counter-revolutionary. Schools and universities were closed, ancient cultural artifacts were destroyed, and millions were persecuted. The Cultural Revolution had a devastating impact on China's economy, education system, and social fabric. The country was plunged into turmoil, with widespread violence, famine, and political instability. After Mao's death in 1976, the Cultural Revolution gradually came to an end. A new generation of leaders, led by Deng Xiaoping, emerged, determined to distance themselves from the excesses of the Mao era. Section 10. Conclusion. The enduring impact of the Chinese Civil War. The Chinese Civil War was a pivotal event in modern world history. Its reverberations felt across the globe. It led to the rise of the PRC as a major power, reshaped the geopolitical landscape, and had a profound impact on the lives of hundreds of millions of people. The war's legacy continues to shape China today. The CCP, having successfully navigated the challenges of economic reform and opening up to the world, remains firmly in power, its legitimacy rooted in its victory in the Civil War. The division of China, however, remains a sensitive issue, a reminder of the wounds of the past that have yet to fully heal. As China continues its rise as a global power, the lessons of its tumultuous past, particularly the Chinese Civil War, will undoubtedly continue to shape its future course.